would be saved. Suddenly the air was filled with a strange and sweet perfume. A light that shone from everywhere drove shadows from the room. And Jesus stood before me with his arms held open wide. And I fell on my knees, and I just clung to him and cried. He raised me to my feet, and as I looked into his eyes, love was shining out from him like sunlight from the skies. Guilt and my confusion disappeared in sweet relief. Every fear I'd ever had just melted into peace. Can you imagine the joy? Can you imagine the excitement when you finally realize that he's alive? He's alive. He's alive. He's alive, and I'm forgiven. Heaven's gates are open wide. He's alive. Oh, he's alive. He's alive, and I'm forgiven. Heaven's gates are open wide. He's alive. He's alive. Hallelujah. He's alive. He's alive, and I'm forgiven. Heaven's gates are open wide. He's alive. Oh, he's alive. He's alive, and I believe it. He's alive. Alive. Somebody give God that praise. Oh, he's alive.
Amen.
You know, and he went and now he sits at the right hand of the Father, making intercession for you and me. And here we are, some 2,000 years later. You know, I'm sorry, it just gets to me because I can put myself in the place of Peter in that position, because how many times do we do just like Peter? We float. Here we are 2,000 years later, and now we ask ourselves, when we really get a grip on what Jesus Christ has done for us, do you ever wonder how he feels when we continue to mess with it and we don't follow him? Tell me Jesus died for my transgressions, that he paid that price a long, long time ago, when he gave his life for me on a hill called Calvary. But there's something else I want to know. Does he still feel the nails every time I fail? Can he hear the crowd cry, crucify again? Am I causing him pain? Then I know I've got to change. I just can't bear the thought of hurting you. Seems that I'm so good at breaking promises. and that treat His precious grace so carelessly. Each time He forgives, what if He really lives? The agony He felt on that tree, does He still feel the nails every time I fail? Can you hear the crowd cry, crucify again? Am I causing Him pain that I know I've got to change? I just can't bear the thought of hurting Him. Do you still feel the nails every time I fail? Have I crucified you, Jesus, with my sin? Oh, I'm tired of playing games. I really want to change. I never want to hurt you again. When we think about what God's done for us, what Jesus did for us on that cross, He suffered a terrible death physically. The thing that hurt Him most of all, the thing that He feared most of all. You see, He made a comment one time. He said, I don't do anything except what God tells me to do. I don't say anything except what God tells me to say. And so the thing that He feared most was when the sin of the world was placed upon Him and God had to turn away and distance Himself from Jesus Christ, the Savior of the world. For that moment, He had never been apart from the Father. But yet He was willing to do that for you. He was willing to do that for you and for me. Just close your eyes and think about yourself. Take your mind off this world for a while. Now search your soul, see if you know where you go if your world should end tonight. Jesus Christ has paid the price for your sin. To enter heaven you must be born again. And if you die tonight, in the morning where would you be? If you die tonight, where would you spend eternity? Just stop and think next breath you take just might be the last one you get. No guarantees, so ask yourself please, if tonight is the night, are you ready yet? Don't be a fool, you know your soul's on the line. Just call on Jesus while you still have the time. And if you die tonight, in the morning, where would you be? If you die tonight, where would you spend eternity? If you die tonight, in the morning, where would you be? If you die tonight, where would you spend eternity? Where would you spend eternity? I need you to ask yourself, what would happen to me if I left this world tonight? A good friend of mine used to put it this way: if you're 99% sure you're saved, you're 100% lost. Because John writes these words, I write these words so you will know. So you know if you've been reborn. You know if you look at things differently. You start to act differently. You start to talk differently. You start to react differently. Jesus said you must be born again. I said earlier, we've got what we're going to do today is we've got a precious brother of mine that I love dearly. Hadn't known him that long, but I have come to love him dearly. I've seen God working in him, and he texted me or something a few weeks ago and asked me about ordination and licensing and what it was all about. And basically, when someone is ordained and they're licensed by a church to be a minister of the gospel, what we're doing is we're saying that we see the call of God on his life to do ministry, and that he has answered the call. And he texted me and asked me about it, and I said, I told him, explaining the situation, we have a little service, and they vary from one to the next, but I told him, I said, we have a little service, and we basically say that we're acknowledging that we see the call in your life. And I told him, I said, just by the way, I already see the call, so it's just, I'm waiting on you. And so, a little while later, he said, I guess I better answer that call. So I'm going to ask Wayne to come up and share with you a little bit what's on his heart. And hopefully we're supposed to have another pastor to show up here in a little bit and let him say a few words too. But I want to let Wayne just come and just share with you whatever God's laid on his heart today.
I gotta catch my breath for a second. One of the things that is we were listening to the songs this morning, and we sang the song offering. And the words of the song, giving my life to you, surrendering all that I am and all that I have. And God gave me a message recently that that's what he demands of us. spoke to everyone about that this past weekend. He demands our complete and absolute obedience in all that we do to represent Him, to share the gospel, the teachings of Jesus Christ, as we go out into our lives and we do what we do every day. It doesn't mean act, tremendously different. You'll act appropriately and be that shining light as we go into our lives, but you do it as yourself, as who you are, because it has to be genuine. It's from the heart. It's who you are. It's who you become through Him. And as I listened to that song this morning, it really hit home. And at one point, I couldn't sing it anymore. I had to stop for a second because it really hits home when we think about it. It's what He commands, and it's what Brother Eddie throughout his message this morning touched on. When we really think about there at the end when He said the worst moment for Jesus on the cross was when God turned His eyes from Him and He turned from Him. You think about that as well. Christ was pierced with evil in that moment. Something so wholesome and good and holy, pierced with the evil of the world. It's unimaginable. We have our little dose of it that we hold on to, and it takes us through our daily rituals of, this little lie and that little lie, or this little habit or that little habit. But He got hit with all of it in an instant when God averted His eyes from Him and turned away. And He didn't know Him at that moment. And it's because of every one of us that happened. It had to happen. Because if it hadn't, none of us could ever know Him. He could never come into any of us. I talked to Eddie about, there's something I just really wanted to read this morning, and it's in 1 Corinthians. Starts with verse 18, chapter 1. Originally I had put in chapter 2, but the message changes. So, as I talk with Eddie about what we're doing here today, I came to realize it's if we allow ourselves to have doubts and uncertainty, once again, even those emotions are not of God. He does not put that lack of confidence, that lack of understanding, distrust in ourselves, lack of confidence. He doesn't create that. When we look away from trusting Him, when we step away from that, just completely giving ourselves over to trusting and believing in Him, that He will deliver on His promises, those things creep in. They creep into our heart, and it takes over our minds. It begins to consume us. So I realized that as I started to think, I don't know if I'm ready. I don't know that I understand. It doesn't matter what I understand. It doesn't matter if I think I'm ready. He tells us when we're ready to do what He wills that we do. He gives you the message. He shows you what you need to know. He takes you in the book, or He'll take you where He wants you to go, to see what it is that you're to see, to understand. It may be someone else's circumstance. It may be a situation He places you in so that you get understanding from that to share with others, to help them understand. He does it in so many ways when you truly trust and believe in Him. I know in my heart that today this is the most true and honest thing I have ever done. Because it's not about me. So, verse 18, chapter 1. For the message of the cross is foolishness to those who are perishing, but to us who are being saved, it is the power of God. For it is written, I will destroy the wisdom of the wise, and bring to nothing the understanding of the prudent? Where is the wise? Where is the scribe? Where is the disputer of this age? Has not God made foolish the wisdom of the world? For since in the wisdom of God, the world through wisdom did not know God, it pleased God through the foolishness of the message preached to save those who believe. For Jews request a sign, and Greeks seek after wisdom. But we preach Christ crucified, to the Jews a stumbling block, and to the Greeks foolishness. But to those who are called, both Jews and Greeks, Christ, the power of God and the wisdom of God. Because the foolishness of God is wiser than men, and the weakness of God is stronger than men. And I'd ask you to look over to verse 30. But of him you are in Christ Jesus, who came before us wisdom from God, and righteousness and sanctification and redemption, that as it is written, he who glories, let him glory in the Lord. And I, brethren, when I came to you, did not come with excellence of speech or of wisdom, declaring to you into the testimony of God. For I determined not to know anything among you except Jesus Christ and him crucified. And I was with you in weakness, in fear, and in much trembling. And my speech and my preaching were not with persuasive words of human wisdom, but in demonstration of the Spirit and of the power, that your faith should not be in the wisdom of men, but in the power of God. And when God shared this message with me, and then he started to modify it a little bit, and what he helped me understand is that that's where I am today. I don't try to tell you how much I know about what surrounds me. I just want to share the gospel with you. The teachings of Christ and the understanding of who God is and who he wants us to be and what he expects of us. That's all I want to do. And I want to do it the way he demands that I do it. You know, last weekend I had an opportunity to speak at a nursing home. And he lets you know when you don't do it his way. Let me tell you. And there's nothing like being in a room full of people when it happens. He had given me a very clear message the night before. So I marked it in my Bible so I knew exactly where I was supposed to go and how he wanted it to flow. And then he showed me another story. Unrelated to Sunday, but it was just another story to learn from. And I read through it. And I thought, wow, that'd be great. It'd fit right over here. And I get up and I'm speaking to the residents of the nursing home. And I see Brother Eddie fact checking me over here on the left. And I'm feeling good. I'm saying what he's wanting me to say. And then I start to interject what I thought would fit well. I started stumbling and fumbling. You heard it, I know you did. I started stumbling and fumbling, and I couldn't remember the story, and it's right in front of me. And I had to take a deep breath for a second, and he brought me back on track. He helped me recover, but he let me know, don't ever do it again. Because when you try to do it on your own, he's going to step back and say, go ahead. See what result you get. I know the result I'm going to get. Go do it on your own. And that's what I did my whole life. I did it on my own, I thought. A story that I've only told a few, I think, throughout the course of my lifetime. When we were younger, my father was in the service. And at one point he was stationed right up here in Fort Benning, Georgia. And we used to go to church at Calvary Baptist. It was Calvary Baptist. It was a small trailer right outside of the trailer park that we lived in. And I remember one day being at the service, and I was probably 10 or 11 years old, about Haley's age. And we were singing Washed in the Blood of the Lamb, and I didn't know anything about altar calls or any of this stuff. I was just a little kid. We were there just for the Kool-Aid and the graham crackers, So. And this overwhelming feeling came over me one day when we were singing. And I looked at my mom, and I could feel tears coming down my face, and then she said, are you okay? I said, I don't think so. I said, crying? And she says, well, go up and talk to, I can't remember the pastor's name. She says, go up and talk to her. So I went up and we prayed together. And I don't really know what happened other than they then put me in a tank of water and baptized me. And it was unfortunate because my parents began to fall away from the church after we left Columbus, Georgia. And my father was sent overseas, and my mom was with us kids, and we caused all the gray hairs that she ever had and lost along the way. And we fell away from the church. But I shared with Brother Eddie this weekend, I was different than most kids. Didn't have a lot of friends, didn't really seek out a lot of friends, and when folks would do things that didn't feel right, didn't seem right, kind of stay away from it. I stuck around home more. I spent time with my grandfather and my mom's cousin, fishing on the river and learning from my grandfather. And then when my dad was gone, the last 4 or 5 years that I was at home, my father was stationed in Fort Campbell, Kentucky, about a 4-hour drive away from where we were. And so my mom really needed me to stay around home and help. And so other than, I was in band, so I would go to the basketball games, the football games to play. But otherwise, I didn't really go to school events, didn't really participate a whole lot in school events. Did a little wrestling and track and things like that. But for the most part, I was kind of by myself doing my own thing. And I was okay with that. I was comfortable with that because I was comfortable with who I was. I went through life that way. But I felt it was me. It was who I was. And as I started I went into the military when I left my hometown. And I became very, very prideful because I was accomplishing things that my peers couldn't accomplish. I was being promoted, they were being left behind. We all left basic training in AIT together. In a brief period of time, I went from E1 to E5. They were still E4, newly promoted E4. I made it to E6, they were still E4. I'm like, yeah, that's what you did, at the time.
We think about this Easter Sunday, we think about this as being Resurrection Day, and it all culminates right here, and everybody, there's a lot of people that never enter a church doors anytime during the year, except for Mother's Day and Easter. And they think that this is the way it is. It's just, this is Easter, this is what it's all about. But let me tell you something. This is not where, it didn't start one Friday with a crucifixion, or one Thursday, and understand that there's, I know there's a lot of books that he was crucified on Friday, but that's not necessarily the case. But we won't get into that this morning. But the thing is, for those 3 days and 3 nights in the heart of the earth that he stayed, it didn't start there. It didn't start there. And it's really irrelevant where it was on Friday or Thursday or whatever, Doesn't matter, that's what happened. But the point is, this didn't begin as an afterthought with God. Jesus didn't begin in a manger in Bethlehem. John 1. In the beginning was the Word was with God, and the Word was God. Jesus was there with God in the beginning. He was His very Word. He was the living Word. And we see that Jesus' beginning didn't begin in Bethlehem. He had no beginning. He's always been. And the Bible tells us that in Colossians 1:17 that He is before all things, and in Him all things consist. In other words, Jesus was there in the creation. He was part of the creation. He helped create everything. And He helps keep it going. And so it didn't just start there. We see in Revelation 13:8, when Jesus was speaking of the plan of salvation, He said, from the foundation of the world, God had a plan. God had a plan for salvation of mankind. See, a lot of the question that people have, well, if there's a God, why is there so much suffering in the world? It's simple, because He gave you a choice. And He gave me a choice. Now, there's a lot of, God has creations there's beings that the Bible speaks about that they're in heaven, and all they do all day long is praise God. That's all they do. They probably can't do anything else. That's what they're made for. But if God wants to create something to love Him, you have to have a choice. If you don't have a choice, it's not real love. You just have to. That's what you're designed to do. But see, God wanted to create people that He would love Him, and so He created a people, and He gave us a choice. It's called free will. And God knew ahead of time, from the foundation of the world, He knew, I'm going to make this people so some people will have a relationship with me, and they're going to mess up. Knew it from the get-go that we're going to mess up. We're going to blow it. And so it wasn't an afterthought. He knew from the foundation of the world, before He ever formed the dirt that we're standing on, He knew that we were going to mess up, and He had a plan in place to pay for our sin. You see, God is a just judge. He is a righteous judge. God is love, but He is also a just judge. He is a righteous judge. He is a holy judge. And so He cannot tolerate evil. He cannot tolerate sin. Therefore, He has to judge sin. He wouldn't be a righteous judge if He didn't. And so He has to judge sin. And He knew that we were going to blow it. He knew that we were going to head down the wrong path. But He loved you so much, the Bible says He loved you so much that He provided a way for you to still be with Him if that's what you want. It's still your choice. You still have a choice. The Bible tells us, even in the beginning in Genesis 3:15, He was speaking to Satan. He said, I will put enmity between you and the woman, and between your seed and her seed, and he shall bruise your head, and you shall bruise his heel. He was speaking in the very first book of the Bible. He was saying, I have a plan. When the woman sinned, and when Adam and Eve sinned in the Garden of Eden, He had a plan, and He knew that was going to bring a Savior into the world. He established the sacrificial system. He made tunics of skin. In Genesis 3:21, He made tunics of skin. They killed the animals and provided tunics of skin as a covering, typifying what Christ would do to cover the sins of people. And these people say, well, why has it got to be, why do you got to kill something? Why does it got to be blood? The Bible says without shedding of blood, there is no remission of sin. Why? Because we need to understand how ugly our sin is. Our sin causes death. The wages of sin is death, the Bible says. So we need to understand how God feels toward sin. It's wretched. It's pitiful. He can't stand it. It's ugly. And so He made tunics of skin. And in Genesis chapter 4, Abel made a sacrifice of the firstlings of the flock. And Cain brought the vegetables to give Him. Now God had already said, there's got to be blood sacrifice. There's got to be death. Because your sin causes death. Our sin not only affected us, but it affected the entire world. Creation, the Bible says, the earth itself groans for redemption. Why do we have problems in the earth? Why do we have earthquakes? Why do we have famines? Why do we have pestilence? Why do we have briars? Why do we have mosquitoes and gnats? Because of man's sin. We brought that on ourselves. And evil is not something God created. It is the absence of God. You take God out of the equation, that's what evil is, what you have left. And so God knew this, and He established this, and he all through the Bible He showed things that typified Christ. You know, we have the ark when he destroyed entire humanity and He saved mankind, and He put them on a boat, and as showing how God saves, how He protects. God, you know, Jesus was typified in the ark. He was typified in the manna as the Israelites wandered in the wilderness. He was the bread that came down from heaven. He was typified in the rock as that gave forth water and gave them drink while they wandered in the wilderness. He was typified in all these things. He was the giver of life in Ezekiel. He was the cloud by day and the fire by night. He was the Ark of the Covenant, where they came and they sprinkled the blood to make sacrifices as they wandered in the wilderness. All these things typified the Savior that was coming. When Abraham took his son Isaac up on that mountain and was going to slay him, and he prophesied when Isaac said, we have the wood, we have the fire, but where's the sacrifice? And he said, God will provide his own sacrifice. You see, God kept pointing the way to Jesus all through history of the Bible. He was pointing to what was to come. And the thousands and thousands and hundreds of thousands of lambs that were slain as sacrifices to God was pointing to the Lamb that was to come. When John saw Jesus and came walking, he said, "Behold, the Lamb of God who takes away the sin of the world." There was a sacrifice coming. And these lambs, all they did was like a credit card saying, "I'm doing this, sacrificing this lamb." And they had to give their best. A lamb without spot or blemish. You couldn't just take anything. You had to give your best because God gave his best. Had to be a lamb without spot or blemish, and they would sacrifice this lamb. And what this did was showing us that there was going to be a lamb to come that would take away the sin of the world. And this was a symbol, just like baptism is a symbol today. You can get baptized all day long, it ain't going to help you a bit. But it's a symbol of what takes place in the heart. And if there hadn't been a heart change, if there hadn't been a life change, then no matter where you've been, you can get baptized in that pond from here to Fort Gainesville. Every tadpole in there knows you by name. Ain't going to do you a bit of good. All they're going to do is get you wet. But that is an outward symbol of what you believe. You're saying the old person has passed away, has been buried and resurrected in newness of life with Christ Jesus. And if there hadn't been that resurrection of newness of life, you being baptized is not going to help you. You taking communion is not going to help you. You coming to church is not going to help you. There's got to be a change in your life. And you can't do it. Well, I'm going to try to do better. Quit trying. Start trusting. You can't do it. You have to trust God and allow him to work in and through you and allow him to change you. You can do your best. It might last a week or two or a month if you're lucky. Guess what? You're going to go back to doing the same thing you used to do. If you're trusting him. I've seen people, they got to go to AA, got to go to alcoholics, and got to go to drugs. Let me tell you something. There's a 12-step program. No, there's a one-step program. You give Jesus Christ and it's gone. Plain and simple. All that other mess, you can stay alcoholic the rest of your life. And you can fight it the rest of your life. Or you can give it to God and be done with it. If you trust him enough, and he says, "Do you love me more than the liquor? Do you love me more than the drugs? Do you love me more than the fornication? Do you love me more than the adultery? Do you love me more than the homosexuality?" That's what it boils down to. Or we trust in God. You see. But God provided a way, and he showed us all through it. And then there was a time in Israel when they were wandering in the wilderness, and God would speak to the people. And his voice would thunder, and it would scare them to death. And they went to Moses and said, we don't want to hear God anymore. No, I'm scared of him. We don't want to hear him. And God said, "Okay. You don't want to hear me? I'll raise up." In 18, Deuteronomy tells us about this in Deuteronomy 18:18. He said, "I'll raise up a prophet from among you, among your own people, and I will raise him up. And I will put my words in his mouth." He was prophesying. He was telling about Jesus to come. "I'll put my words in his mouth." And he said, they were saying, "Oh, I'm afraid if we hear God, we're going to die." And he said, "Okay, I'm going to raise up one of your own. I'm going to put my words in his mouth. And if you don't listen to him, I will require that of you. Your death." You didn't want to hear me. You don't want to hear me, so I'm going to raise up a prophet from among you. He'll tell you how to live, how to do, what to do. You can follow him or die. That's your choice. And so he did just what the people wanted. And so we go through and we have all these things that happen, the sacrifices that was made. And Jesus is represented throughout the Bible. He's the wisdom in Proverbs. He is the one who is the one that's deserving of praise in the Psalms. And then we get to John 1:14, and the Word became flesh and dwelt among us. You see, he was typified in all these things, and then in John it says he came here. And then throughout the Gospels, he was the healer and the forgiver of sin. That's what Jesus was, and that's what he did to come. And it wasn't an afterthought. It was what he came for. He came to show us the way and to be a sacrifice for our sin. Well, why you gotta have us? Why do you have to die for our sin? Why do you have to? Because sin causes death, and somebody had to pay the price. And because he was the only sinless human being that's ever lived, he paid the price. You say, well, why did that have to happen? If you go to court and you have broken the law and you stand before a judge and you're guilty, the judge gives you a fine. Judge, I can't pay it. Okay. You go to prison. Same thing happens, you stand before God. You go before God, you've broken his law. You've lied, you've stolen, you committed adultery in your heart, you've blasphemed God, dishonored your parents. You've broken God's law. And God says if you break one of my commands, you've broken my entire law. And so when you break God's law, the law's been broken, so now there has to be a penalty. There's a price to be paid. You can't pay the fine. So you go to God's prison called hell. But if somebody comes in and they step in and they pay your fine, God can legally dismiss your case. But why can't I just be good and I'll just turn over a new leaf and I'll start doing good things? You still broke God's law. No matter how much good you do, you're still a lawbreaker. You're still a criminal. And so somebody has to pay your fine. So God, because of his love for you and love for humanity, he sent his son, Jesus Christ, to come and die on the cross to pay for your sin. Now what we have to do to accept that payment is trust him and follow him. If you were in a court today and somebody came in and the judge said you owe a $5 million fine, and you said I can't pay it, somebody stepped in and paid $5 million, you'd probably follow them around the rest of their life and do whatever they wanted you to do. Because it kept you out of jail. That's what Jesus did for you 2,000 years ago. He stepped in and he paid your fine. So we should, out of gratitude, want to follow him. You know, we tend to take ourselves away from the things that happen. And we read about it in the Bible and we see these things that happen, but what we need to understand that Jesus came and he became the Lamb, the Redeemer. And then when he rose the third day, he became the accepted sacrifice in the King of Kings, Lord of Lords. There used to be a TV show years ago, and probably the only time I do these songs is just about every Easter. I can do these songs, but there used to be a TV show years ago, and the name of it was You Are There. And they would go back and they would recreate some historical point in time, and whether it was a battle or some historical thing that happened years ago, and they would act it out on TV, and it was a TV program, and it was called You Are There. And so this morning, I want us to go back. So what I want you to do is there's a couple of songs here I want to share with you that tell the story. So what I want everybody to do is I want you to just take a moment. I want you to close your eyes, bow your head. If you got to go to potty, you hold it. I don't want nobody moving around. I don't want nobody doing nothing for the next few minutes, because I want you to play this out in your mind. I want you to close your eyes. I want you to listen to the words, and we're going to go back in time. Walking on the road to Jerusalem, time had come to sacrifice again. My two small sons, they walked beside me on the road. reason that the king was to watch the land. Daddy, Daddy, what will we see there? So much that we don't understand. So I told him of Moses and Father Abraham. Then I said, dear children, watch the land. There will be so many in Jerusalem today. We must be sure the land doesn't run away. So I told them Moses and Father Abraham. Then I said, dear children, watch the land. When we reached the city, I knew something must be wrong. There were no joyful worshipers, no joyful worship songs. I stood there with my children in the midst of angry men. Then I heard the crowd cry out, crucify him. Tried to leave the city, but we could not get away. Forced to play this drama, a part I did not wish to play. Why upon this day we're men condemned to die? Why were we standing here where soon they put us by? He looked and said, even now they come. The first one cried for mercy. The people gave him none. The second one was violent. He was arrogant and loud. I still can hear his angry voice screaming at the crowd. Someone said, there's Jesus. And I scarce believed my eyes. A man so badly beat, he barely looked alive. Blood poured from his body, from the thorns upon his brow, running down the cross, falling to the ground. I watched him as he struggled. I watched him as he fell. The cross came down upon his back. The crowd began to yell. In that moment, I felt such agony. In that moment, I felt such loss. Until a Roman soldier grabbed my arm and screamed, "You! Carry his cross." At first, I tried to resist him, and then his hand reached for his sword. So I knelt and took the cross from the Lord. Placed it on my shoulder, I started down the street. The blood that he'd been shed was running down my cheek. They led us to Golgotha, where he drove nails deep in his feet and hands. Then upon the cross, I heard him pray, "Father, forgive them." Oh, never have I seen seen such love in any other eyes. Into thy hands I commit my spirit. He prayed, and then he died. I stood for what seemed like years, had lost all sense of time, till I felt two tiny hands holding tight to mine. The children stood there weeping. I heard the oldest say, Father, please forgive us. The lamb ran away. Daddy, Daddy, what have we seen here? There's so much that we don't understand. So I took them in my arms. We turned and faced the cross. Then I said, dear children, watch the Lamb. Jesus was crucified. They buried him in a borrowed tomb. Been 3 days. Now the disciples were afraid. Peter and the rest of the disciples are in an upper room, waiting, scared, not knowing what to do. Gates and doors barred and all the windows fastened down. I spent the night in sleeplessness and rose at every sound. Half in hope of sorrow and half in fear the day would find the soldiers breaking through and drag us all away. Just before the sunrise, I heard something at the wall. The gate began to rattle and the voice began to call. I hurried to the window and looked down into the street, expecting swords and torches and the sound of soldiers' feet. There was no one there but Mary, so I went down to let her in. John stood there beside me as she told us where she'd been. She said they moved him in the night and none of us knows where. The stone's been rolled away, now his body isn't there. So we both ran toward God. Then John ran on ahead. We found the stone in the empty tomb, just the way that Mary said. But the winding sheet that wrapped him in was just an empty shell. And hell, where they'd taken him was more than I could tell. Was something strange happened there, just where I didn't know. John believed a miracle, but I just turned to go. Circumstance and speculation couldn't lift me very high, so I'd seen him crucified. Then I saw him die. Back inside the house again, the guilt and anguish came. Everything I promised him just added to my shame. When at last it came choices I denied, I knew his name. And even if he was alive,